Hello and welcome everyone to a quick tutorial. My name is Lawal and today I'm going to be showing you some pretty cool stuff that you can do with SvelteKit concerning preloading fonts, concerning authentication and authorization and those sort of things. So basically the focus of this video is going to be teaching you how to handle access and refresh token if your backend is on some different server being handled by some different developer and it's just giving you endpoints to it, and you're not really having a fully integrated SvelteKit front end back end. So sometimes this thing can get confusing, and how to go about it can even get more confusing. So I'm going to just be showing you, but at the same time, sprinkling some nice things like how to preload fonts and how to undo authorization and authentication. So the first thing here is to note that all that action is going to be going on in the hooks.server.ts or JS if you're using JavaScript file. This is a pretty powerful file that runs on every load. Mind you, when I see load, I mean on every page load. And that page must have some sort of server connection in terms of you having the plus page.server.ts file for that page. So that page must have a plus page.server.ts file for this hook to run on its refresh. So let's take a look at this code I have already have written down here. The first one here is an undo hook to preload the font. So this is pretty standard code. I have a font being used, a locally installed font being used, and I want that font to be preloaded so I don't have that snappy stuff where the browser loads and then the font takes like, I don't know, some few milliseconds before it pops in. I don't really like that experience, so I like my font to be preloaded. And with just this little line of code, like 4 or 5, I can get that done pretty easy. This is very neat. I don't think I need to go deep into this. The one that I'm going to focus on is this second undo hook here, which is to undo authorization. So the first thing here is that I'm doing is I'm getting locales, I'm getting fetch, and I'm getting URL from events. Now all this I can destructure from events. Yeah, no problem. And I have this get user function, which is basically going to get this user, and that's what it does. So if there is a user, it's going to get the user, and the user is going to be stored here. And when the user is stored here, I'm going to store that user in locales. That's what this third line of code is doing. It's storing that user in locales, and now that is in locales, I can access it in any um, load function, in every action, form actions, or things like that. That's why I'm adding it here to locals. And this if block is basically checking for protected route. Is basically giving us some route protection. Now I'm just saying if the URL dot path name starts with me slash me, so every path name or page that starts with slash me, no matter how much nested it is, how deeply nested it is, as far as it starts with slash me, and the locals dot user is undefined. That's what I'm checking here with this sign right in front of locals dot user. I'm checking if the locals dot user is undefined. Then I would redirect them to the home page back. So if the path name is slash me is a protected route. So if it starts with slash me and there is no user, that means the user is not logged in. I'll redirect them back to the home page. And then I would resolve events. I'll get it in the response and then I'll return the response. That's pretty standard hooks stuff right there in SvelteKit. The third one here is where most of the action is going on and is the main topic of today. So right here we're using a different type of hook. In the first two we used handle hooks. In the third one here we're using a handleFetch hook. Yeah. So now this handleFetch hook is going to run. Now these hooks, things that I keep saying hooks, they're basically like middleware. If you are from any backend environment or things like that, they're just things that intercept something and then run. Get what I'm saying? So this handleFetch is basically a hook in SvelteKit concept, but it works the way middlewares work or the way interceptors work. So it's going to intercept every fetch request we have, and then it's going to do something to it that we have stated, and then it's going to resolve and just continue on its way. So what we are going to do first thing first is to get the cookies from event, and then we'll get two cookies, the access and the refresh token. The access and the refresh token, they are being stored in the cookies of the browser. So we get them. And then when we've gotten them, and then we're not going to do our first check right here in this F block is going to have our first check. So what we are checking here is if the request.url that starts with API based URL. Now this API based URL is the base URL of the API that we are eating, the endpoints API that we are I was saying interfacing with the, in my case, Django backend that is not written by me, written by another developer, and it's served somewhere. I don't know Python. I don't know where things are going on. So all I get is the endpoints to it and the URL to eat them from. Now I'm just going to check if the request that we're eating starts with the base URL, because I want only these things that I'm doing now to be done to when I'm actually interfacing with that API, this particular API. I might be interfacing with some different API, and I might not need all of these things to run, or to, I don't need this handleFetch to intercept that thing or that particular or certain fetch request and do all these things. I only want it to happen if I'm interfacing with this particular Django um, backend. So I'll check if it starts with the API.base URL. This API.base URL is stored in my environment variable. And I also check if the access token is available. I have to do those two things. Yeah, I'm checking if it starts with that certain base URL, and I'm checking if the access token is available. Now, if that returns true, I'm going to basically clone the former request, the original request. I'll clone it. But what I will do now is I'll just add this authorization bearers access token. All this bunch of gibberish of code is basically just to add the authorization header to it. So now every request being sent that starts with this API based URL, as far as the access token is available, I'll be adding it to my authorization here. And then I'll now get the response in this line 42 when that is done. When I get the response from that line 42, I'll check for the status. So if the status is equals to 401, meaning that the user is unauthorized, which also means that, or could also mean that the access token has expired, because this access token have max life of, I believe, an hour or so, and they don't live that long, so they are short lived, and that access token could have been expired even though it's still in the cookies, and it could have just been expired, or it could have been meddled with, somebody could have gone there and just rewritten something there, and it could possibly not be the access token we are that we want. So if it's equals to 401, that means it expired. And I want to check if the refresh token exists. If the refresh token exists, I will run this function that I have here, which is going to refresh the token. And then when we refresh the token, we get a new access token and a new refresh token. Get. So what I'll do is I'll save that access token and that new refresh token, and then I'll basically do what I did here. I'll do it again here. So I'll add to our requests this authorization header with the access token again. Now the access token is fresh, it's not expired. So I'll now run it again. And for the third time, I'll now check again if the status is equals to 401, and we have a access token and we have a refresh token. Now what I'm checking is if it's equals to 401, that means the response from this second check is equals to 401, telling us that that access token was also expired, and our refresh token existing, and our access token is existing, which means that our access token and our refresh token are both invalid. They are none of them are working. And at that stage, I will just make the decision to delete both that access token and that refresh token, which will automatically log out the user. So the user will have to log in again to get a new access token and a new refresh token, and for the whole channel to keep on working. And this code, this whole handleFetch code is only going to run when I run a fetch request. So if I want to do a fetch to get a to get this certain user's information, I don't have to put the access token and in the bearer's authorization header, things like that. I just do it normally, and it's going to run this check or run this code rather, and do all of that for me. Basically, like this for every fetch that I do. As far as I use with the fetch that SvelteKit provides for us, as far as I do it with that one, it's going to work. If I do it with the native fetch, it's not going to work. So mind you, that might be a cause of bug for some individuals, but just make sure you are using the one that SvelteKit provides. So once that is done, that is basically all of it. You then have to just return the response like that. And for the handle hook, because we have two handle, we have the one for the preload font and the one for the handle auth. We're going to have to use this sequence to put the preload and the handle auth both together like that. And that's basically it. It's as simple as that. This very powerful functionality with very few lines of code, just about 70 lines of code. And that's why I really love using SvelteKit, just because of the ease it gives you to do very powerful things. If you like this sort of videos, very short and quick, let me know. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know the way it works, you know the drill. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.